Hi there, I'm Tim McKibben here at the Tibetan Buddhist Society Peaceful Land of Joy Meditation Centre. We're out just north of Melbourne. I'm in the beautiful traditional Tibetan temple, and it's set in an equally beautiful 10-acre flower garden, so you have to come and visit us sometime. The talk today is When the Going Gets Tough. Resilience through meaning. So I've no idea what that means, but we'll give it a go. So I'm going to quote Shantideva. He was a great Indian master, 8th century Indian meditation master and a scholar who wrote an incredible book called Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds. And he said, "Where would I find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth, but merely putting leather on the soles of my feet is equivalent to covering the earth." So Shantideva was saying there's lots of sharp, rough ground on planet Earth. There's sharp rocks and prickles and thorns and all sorts of things you don't really want to tread on, broken glass, dog poo, the whole works. So back then, you might think, well, if I covered the earth in leather, then I'll be protected from all of that pain and nastiness. But obviously it's not enough. So instead, just putting leather on your feet, on your shoes, then you're protected no matter where you go and what you encounter. So similarly, what he was getting at is we can't control the world. We can't control, for example, the weather, the climate. We can't control the economy. Sometimes the world goes into depression. Sometimes it's growth. We can't control so many different things. Other people's behaviour. They'll behave how they want to behave and how it makes sense to them. We can't control other people's beliefs and so on, or how they act towards us. We have little control over that. We have little control over our own bodies. We'll get old, though we don't want to. We'll get sick, though we don't want to. We'll die, though we don't want to. And we have little control over our own minds. So sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're grumpy, sometimes we're sad, and so on, up and down and up and down. So the point is, if we gain control over our mind, then similar to putting leather on the soles of your feet, then no matter what we encounter, then we're able to deal with it skillfully and constructively, and it won't harm us as much as it would do if we have no control over our mind. It may even benefit us depending how we use our minds. So resilience is this sort of ability to disregard or overcome, disregard difficulties, overcome difficulties, transform them, and bounce back, recover from them, and not be sort of knocked out of our orbit by the slings and arrows of life. So many people, for example, people who lose their jobs, or people who lose their partners against their wishes, or a loved one dies, or the doctor says, "Sit down, I've got some bad news, your blood tests are back, you've got cancer." So it's very easy to be knocked out of orbit and go into sort of denial and grief and anger and maybe sort of go into alcoholism, gambling. Often relationships break up when stresses start to apply, external stresses. And, sort of worst case, occasionally you hear people killing other members of their family because they can't deal with maybe a separation. They're not getting what they want, and they've got no skill or in dealing with the situation, and the sort of craziness or anger takes control and destroys their lives and destroys other people's lives. So Shantideva is saying we don't need any of that. Much better to be like a tree, which if a branch is torn off a tree, it doesn't deny it's happened. It doesn't start grieving, get sad, get depressed, and so on, worry. It just sets about healing itself. It fixes itself. It's happened, it gets on with it. So that's it's easy to say, obviously, but that's what we try and learn through the Dharma, try and develop some of this resilience. So there's many methods in the Buddhist teachings for transforming adverse conditions. They're called the thought trainings. Lots of different methods, and one of them is to develop a deeper sense of purpose or meaning in your life. And then you can use that sort of framework to get through the day-to-day difficulties by keeping your sense of purpose on the long-term goal. So sort of a bigger goal gives that sense of it gives that sense of resilience. You can get by. So often you hear of people retiring without any purpose or meaning. They're wondering how to fill their days. And I think it's been proven to be the cause of shorter life, that if you have no reason to keep going, then people sometimes have shorter lives after retirement. So meaning's sort of useful. And we're able to endure discomfort. If we can see a purpose in things, then we're able to endure discomfort. So if we go to the dentist, you can put up with all the drilling and you can quickly bounce back afterwards because you can see the meaning. It's going to relieve you from long-term pain. Or, people run up mountains, maybe even Everest, and they put up with the freezing cold and all the endurance and the crappy food and the risk, and maybe frostbite on their ears and nose and tips of fingers falling off. But with that sense of purpose, they want to get to the top. So that keeps them going. Other examples, a really good one, I suppose, is parents with their babies. They can become very resilient to all the hardship of being exhausted, having to get up at night time, wipe the baby's bum, clean the nappy, change the nappy, and feed the baby and so on, when all they want to do is sleep. Because they got the bigger purpose, they love their child, and they want it to be healthy and strong and happy. So that keeps them going. And also you can see with sense of purpose in some authoritarian regimes, people will even risk their lives or risk everything, whether it's journalists or human rights lawyers or people who are protesting for the sort of purpose of freedom of expression and so on. So purpose is an important thing. So we can ask what is actually meaningful, in the day-to-day often it gets lost. But if you can imagine at death time, your death time, and other people's accounts of when they're dying, and they get some clarity on what's actually meaningful in their life. And often it's not having bought a German car or the latest iPhone. So from Buddhist viewpoint, a couple of things are very important. And one of them is, have you used your life to learn and develop and sort of explore the potential of your own mind? Or have you been stuck in a rut and always the same, habituated, maybe negative responses, limited responses to things? So that's one thing, learning. And the other thing I think often people see as being very central to their lives is their connection with others. Have I have I loved others? Have I deeply connected with others? Have I helped others? Have I supported them? And those two things really, I think, speak to the heart of what's important in life. A long time ago, I worked as a theatre technician in a hospital and bringing a patient down for a cardiac operation, then for open heart surgery. And they said, it's what you've done for the other bloke that counts at this time. So, obviously, heart surgery, if you have bad luck, you can die. Then, he was contemplating that. So, Buddhist tradition, we try to cultivate our good heart, our compassion, our loving kindness. So from the Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism, this text by Geshe Lodin, he says, if you were to ask what is the essence of Lord Buddha's teachings, the answer must be compassion and great compassion, because they are the foundation of all living beings' happiness and the basis of enlightenment. So we try, in this tradition of Buddhism, we try to develop what's called the mind of enlightenment, which is recognizing the welfare of all beings, that we all seek happiness and to be free of suffering. And so developing the wish for all living beings to be free of suffering. And then seeing that my present state, I can't do a huge amount to benefit others. So I will develop my potential. I'll develop my enlightened potential and seek enlightenment for the welfare of all living beings. That's called the mind of enlightenment, or bodhicitta. It's an extraordinary, profound and extensive sense of purpose. And it doesn't come easily, because we're all bound up with our selfish interests. But at least we can try, even with just the words, and try and train in expanding our mind towards the welfare of others and towards our own potential. So enlightenment's, it's hard to explain, but like a state of grace, you've gone beyond suffering, gone beyond all one's own ignorance and negativity, and fully developed your love, your kindness, your wisdom, your patience, and so on. It's an extraordinary state that the Buddha said we can all attain. It's within us. So compassion is regarded as about the best part of us. It's our best friend, our best protector. It guides us in life. It brings out the best in us. It brings out the best in our relationships. And in future lives, it very much supports us, according to the Buddha. So, and with compassion, it's not just talking about a superficial niceness, like at school, we're taught to be nice. Or it's not just a religious concept. It's a fundamental part of who human beings are. So underlying, we might have a lot of anger, we might have a lot of nastiness or upset, but underlying, if we manage to clean away those clouds and that sort of tension and all that problem, agitated thinking, then the very nature of your mind underneath is this purity and clarity, and by nature compassionate. Compassion naturally arises once we cleared out all the rubbish, all the neuroses that cause us suffering throughout life. So, it's a part of all of us. It's like your children have that basic goodness. You often hear, no child is born racist. They naturally engage with others. It doesn't matter what race they are. And it's only through learning distorted thinking or anger or learning behaviour from parents or from peers that we develop that biased view or negative view or So it's a natural part of us. And it's also natural because we can recognize we're all in the same boat. We're all, everybody wants happiness, the same amount as you want happiness. Every individual, every living being wants that. No one wants suffering. We're all born without control. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose where we're born, which country, or our family. We don't choose to be sick, but we get sick in life. We don't choose to get old and decrepit, but gradually our body falls apart. And we don't choose to die, so we're all in this together. And so naturally we can develop empathy for others, for your family, for people you like, for people you don't like, because we're all in this together. So, and science there's been a lot of scientific research to show that compassion and love and empathy are really useful, even for oneself. They're really useful in your life for strengthening your social networks and your relationships, for developing your own sense of well-being and peace, and so on, for supporting good health. There's been a lot of research shows that these key things we have naturally, we need to nurture because they're the best thing for us. And humans, it does come naturally because humans are born with we've got very big brains, very big heads. So we're pretty much prematurely born. Compared to other animals, we can't look after ourselves as babies for a long, long time. Like baby chimpanzees can feed themselves straight away. Whereas humans, we're like helpless. So naturally we've evolved to care for others, to support others. So the wiring in our brains and the hormonal system has actually evolved so care arises. If you see someone get hurt, the same part of your brain lights up as them, and the caring centre apparently lights up as well. And we have a feel-good hormones. When we're kind to others, naturally you feel good. So we've evolved for this. It's not an artificial sort of social construct. It's part of who we are. So naturally we have compassion. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often talks about human and natural affection, biological affection. So when you're born, you naturally close to your mother. And also, just as a farmer is dependent on his field for his well-being, so he looks after the field. He doesn't let the salt build up or the topsoil blow away, but looks after the soil. In the same way, we can recognize we're totally dependent for everything in our lives. We're totally dependent on others. So if you look at everything in your life, from your car to your smartphone, to any book you've read, to transport, to food, to clothing, to shelter, everything comes from so many other living beings. Normally a huge network or chain of other living beings for every aspect of our life. So just as the farmer cares for his land, we should care for other living beings and try and repay that kindness. So, I'll quote Geshe Acharya Thupten Lodin. He's the spiritual head and founder of the Tibetan Buddhist Society here. And he said, just looking after yourself is not a special human quality. Even animals look after themselves. If you practice Dharma and more help others and more support others, more look after others, then your life is useful, worthwhile and meaningful. So a sense of purpose, just to summarize, a sense of purpose gives us strength to navigate difficulties. We'll all encounter difficulties in life. Many, 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 all of us. Happens all the time. So for most of us, our connection to others is the most meaningful thing in our lives, our relationships with others. So naturally developing your kindness, your underlying compassion, your love, it helps build resilience in your life. And so you're able to bypass these difficulties and not be knocked out of orbit and so on. And ideally, we can develop this tremendous purpose of the mind of enlightenment, where we wish to achieve complete enlightenment, realize the natural purity of your own mind, so you become more and more capable of supporting other living beings. And naturally, it supports yourself at the same time. So anyway, that's the brief talk, and thanks very much for listening, and do come out and visit us sometime. When this lockdown's over, we have lots of festivals and garden open days and regular classes and meditation retreats. So thanks everyone. Cheers.